Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Internal Compass podcast. I am Samuel Archambault. I am your host, osteopath, and kinesiologist. And in today's episode, I'm going to do my best to try to help you to realign from inside out. All right, in this week's episode, I'm going to deviate a little bit from our normal train of thoughts. You know that this podcast is all around pain management, stress management, and how do we live a better life. The thing is, with a lot of my clients, I see that, normally speaking, the pain that they feel, it is very useful, don't get me wrong, to apply all of those different strategies that we've been exploring now for many different weeks. We're at episode 19 now, so for the last 19 episode. But I believe that more and more, I'm going to try to shape the next few episodes perhaps on ways to take some few step backs in our lives and assess if we are on the right direction. I don't want to make this too broad. I want to make this into, again, some actionable tools, strategies that you can use, right? There are many different ways that we can do pain management, right? We can use tools like breathing, myofascial release, mobility training, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. There are plenty of them. And I think that so far I've been doing an okay job at presenting all of those tools to you. But there are some concepts that goes a little bit beyond pain management that I think that they're a little bit overviewed. And that's because they are actually not so much beyond, but they should be much more behind. What I mean by that is, normally speaking, when we feel pain, when you and I are going to feel pain, any type of pain, that's going to be an expression of a symptom. Just like cardiovascular disease doesn't happen in just a few days, right? You don't have an heart attack because of the last 3 days of meals that you just had or the lack of exercise that you did last week. This has been building over a long period of time. And I start to see that more and more in the people around me, in my clients, or even in myself, that pain that we feel is not something that just occurs. Of course, if you have a traumatic injury, that's perhaps something else. But now I'm talking more about either pain that you cannot find a specific source, or I'm also talking about chronic pain, which is more about what this podcast is all about. So if we take a few steps back and we try to look, is there anything in our life that is not aligned? Right? The name of my podcast is Internal Compass, and I've decided to make it this way, even if at first it might be hard a little bit to connect pain management, internal compass, what's the case. But I believe that if we are aligned, if we're aligned physically, if we're aligned emotionally, socially, put whatever sphere of your life you want, but if we are aligned, pain then becomes just something obsolete, something that we might not feel. In periods of my life that I've been feeling very aligned, I didn't feel any pain. There was no back pain. There was no, or way less migraines. And I'm pretty sure you can remember a part of your time that was like this at first. So therefore, that's what I want to address today. And we could take this into many different directions. But the first one I want to take is the difference between responsibility and fault. And what I'm about to say might seem perhaps a little bit harsh, might seem very direct, but I think that you need to hear it and I need to hear it, so I'm going to repeat it. How your life looks right now, and you can include in there the level of pain that you feel right now, this is entirely your responsibility. And now you might say, hey, whoa, Sam, but it's not my fault if I feel pain. It's because of this, or it's because of that, or it's because I've been having those injuries, or it's because of my lack of support, or you can include any topic, any excuse, and that's okay. That makes a whole bunch of sense. And the reality is, I think that all of us tends to do that at first. But if we backtrack and we listen again to what I said that your life right now, the level of pain that you feel right now, or just your overall life, is your responsibility. So in other words, how you feel right now, where you are in your life, emotionally, physically, your health wise, financially, doesn't matter. This is all your responsibility. It doesn't mean that is your fault, right? There might be circumstances that made that it put you on a path that led you there. You know, I don't, can we control what other people do to us? Can we control what the environment? Can we control political events? Can we control crisis? No, we cannot control all of those things. But what I mean when I say it is our responsibility. That means that we can control how we react to those things. And therefore, I've been talking about that regarding pain. Of course, when we feel pain, we always have a choice to decide how are we going to react to this. Are we going to victimize ourselves? Are we going to catastrophize everything? Or are we going to see this with an open mind? So therefore, if right now in your life there is something that is unpleasant, perhaps you feel like you're not really aligned with your work, you're not aligned with your partner, you're not aligned with your purpose, you feel that you don't feel comfortable in your body, then why not be curious? That's the first, I think, tool I want to give to you today, and that is curiosity. The more we can be curious about, hey, if something's not going my way, what went wrong? You know, what's not aligned there? And at the end of the episode today, I want to talk a little bit more about how can you tell if you're aligned or not? And if you are not aligned, how do you kind of organize yourself so that you can be aligned? I think that that's the much more important question. So yeah, I wanted to address this difference between responsibility and fault. And again, you can totally say that things are not your fault, but whether you like it or not, how your life is right now and how you feel in your body, that is your responsibility. And again, I understand that this is hard to understand and it might be hard just to accept. And even if we try to rationalize it in some other way, that's the reality. And if we see it this way, then it's not only about, or hopefully, it's not only about guilt, right? Because if right now you are in a place in your life that you're not feeling well in one part of your life, emotionally, physically, in your health, then don't see this as it's my fault. It's my responsibility. Therefore, if I'm overweight, if I'm in pain, if I don't connect with my job or my partner, this is all my responsibility. Meaning it's all because of me. In a way that kind of bring shame and guilt, right? Guilt is okay because guilt tells you that there is something to change. But if it brings you shame, that then becomes personal and that makes you the only villain in the whole situation, in the whole context, which is not what I meant by this. Because if you switch that around, you can say, if that becomes now your responsibility, that means that you have the power also to change it. And that's the greatest part about it. And I think that in all different spheres of your life, you have the power to change them. And I want to address that today on what is a simple roadmap that you can use to try to change those different things. Another aspect I want to touch on is this unfortunate tendency that right now I think society has to look for immediate gratification. And I know that this has been a very hot topic recently about, with social media and technology and how our society has become kind of conditioned to really look for the quick win, right? And I think that in pain management, this is the same thing. Look at yourself now and look at yourself, try to look at your behaviors in an objective way. And as I'm saying this, I am also talking about myself. If you feel pain in your body, we all want to get it away. We all want to make it disappear as fast as we can. So is it easier to take a pill or it is easier to do a 20-minute meditation? Is it easier to take a pill or is it easier to change your entire life habits? You see where I'm going with this. I reassure you, it's partly your fault because in a way, our brain is made this way. Our brain is going to try to limit the energy we have to use to achieve our goals. So of course, for us, if we see that there's an easier way, who would do the hard thing if there's an easy thing. I think our brain is kind of wired this way. So you have to take a conscious decision on, hey, I'm going to do the harder thing now, but at the end, it's going to pay more. Because as an example, if I have migraine right now, I'm going to take a medication to, suppress the pain. But if I don't look at myself and say, hey, why am I having many migraines these days? Maybe it's because I'm overstressed. So if I don't work on my stress management, then those migraines are going to come back over and over again. So I still have to do, one doesn't mean you can't use the other. But I believe that we have to take consciously this decision to explore the harder part, the darker part, the part that feels a bit uncomfortable. Because remember, pain is a message. And the few different spheres of your life that doesn't really feel right now, that maybe you feel like, it could be better. This is a message to you to explore those more like dark areas and say, hey, what do I have to learn, right? Be curious. What do I have to learn? And what can I do actually to feel more aligned? The danger with this immediate gratification is that we will never explore those. And therefore we will pass by this very important message that would allow to grow. And I don't want to go too deep into this, but why are we here if it's not to be better? Why are we on this planet if it's not to, become a better version of ourselves and contribute more to the people around us? Every time someone comes in my office, they are in pain. They want to get better. They want to feel better. Well, that's all we want, I believe. We all want, at the end, we can put it into different terms. We want to be paid free. We want to be happy. We want to feel free. At the end, all that we want is to feel in a different state. We want to feel a specific set of emotion, because really how we feel drives whatever we do, right? Why do we want to eat good food? It's because it makes us feel good. Why do we want to, be with a partner and create a life together? That's because we feel connected. We always do actions. We always do things to feel a specific way. So I believe that is the own belief that I have decided I'm going to hold on tight, is that we want to become better. I think for everybody. I don't think there's anybody out there that just decides that they don't want to be any better. Maybe consciously they might not be aware, but I think unconsciously we all want to strive to feel better. And for that, the thing is, in order to feel better, there's no shortcut to feeling better. Or let's say that maybe they are, but they come with a price, right? If you drink 5 glasses of wine, perhaps you'll feel better on the moment, but in the next morning, maybe not. So you see where I'm going with this. The real feeling of peace and the real better feeling comes with patience, comes with challenges, comes with work. And that is all of what our reality shows us, basically. The things that creates friction in our lives, that's a message to say, hey, there is something there to explore and to learn from that. So again, tools so far: be curious and ask yourself, if something's not right, then why am I not aligned? And therefore, I want to perhaps use now the occasion to talk about, okay, maybe now you have been identifying a part of your life that you don't feel aligned. Maybe it's with your spouse, maybe it's with your purpose, your job, your hobbies, whatever it is. Where does that come from? Maybe you might ask, okay, Sam, that's interesting. I'm following you. But then if I want to really do the background work, if I want to prevent those pains from arising more often, how can I realign myself? And in my opinion, all of that comes down to our values. And you might say, okay, that's great, but then what? Well, the first step is identify your values. Do you know what you want in life? That's a big question, right? And that's a question I ask myself all the time. And the reality is, I think I ask myself this question so many times that I have to go back to writing and journaling, because will we ever know what do we truly want in life? Maybe not. Maybe it always changes. But I think asking the question is the first step. What do you really want in life? And why do you want it? That's another good question. And why do we want what we want? It's getting a little bit confusing, but why do we want what we want? Those are your values. Look at your life right now, where you're at. What's your job? Who's the person you're with? Look at your schedule. What do you do most of the time? That gives you a pretty good idea of your values. Are you someone who will put security and comfort first? Are you someone who, to the contrary, will put adventure, power, and freedom first? There are no good or bad values. There are only values that are true to you. And that's where I want to go to. That's what I want to expose to you today. Perhaps now is a good time to ask yourself what your values are. If you are able to know what your values are for you, then you will know what you want. Because then whatever decision you will take in life, you can always refer back to those values. If you have a new project coming up, if you have a new opportunity, if you can change city for work, or if you are thinking about having a baby with your spouse, all of those things will come back to, is this aligned with your value or not? And I see that so many times with my clients, that they are in pain, physical pain and emotional pain, both of them together. And when I start asking them, how's their life? They keep telling me that they're overly stressed, that something's not right, that they can't meet both ends of the story. And then I start asking them what's important for them. And then they ask me how their family is important, or how their sense of contribution. But then you notice that they barely spend any time with their families, or if for them it's very important to be secure and comfortable, and their jobs put them in this situation where they're constantly out of their comfort zone. Well, what do you think is going to happen? They're not aligned with their values. Everybody is going to live their life differently. So perhaps it's a good moment now to ask yourself, what's the type of life you want to live? And what is important for you at the end? And I think that if you can identify that, and that there are many ways to identify this, but I think just asking the question at first is a good idea. I like journaling, right? Writing down. Look at everything that you have in your life right now. Write it all down. Your family, your friends, your car, your apartment, your lifestyle. Write everything down, like in one paragraph. How does your life look like? And then if you would have to cut some of those things out, if you have to lose a relationship, some material stuff, some lifestyle, some skills that you have, eliminate that down one after the other. And until you have maybe like 5 left, those are probably your values. We will never compromise on our values. So if at the end you have your spouse, your families, or you have your freedom, or perhaps you have like your motorcycle because that's for you the way to be really free or live your adventure, or you want to keep your backpack for whatever reason, that gives you a really good idea of your specific values. So again, there are plenty of different ways to find your values, but just asking yourself that question and put them in order, right? Try to find 5 values and put them into order. Which one is the most important in rank 1 all the way to rank 5? And once you have those, then perhaps you can start taking your decision according to those values. So the next time, again, that now you have an opportunity coming your way, you'll have a filter that you can use those. Okay, now you know a little bit more about yourself. You know a little bit more about your values. Then the next time is to plan. You can always react to whatever comes your way, but you can also have an intent. You can live purposefully. So what if you look at those values and you say, how can I better embody those values in my life? Can I do something? Can I take a decision consciously to say, I'm going to create this. I'm going to create a project. I'm going to do volunteering. I'm going to create a family. I'm going to create a community, whatever that is. But ask yourself, how can I embody those values best, my values, and in my way? What are your strengths? Do you know your strength? So many questions I have for you, so little answers. And that's the great part about life, is that perhaps we'll never be able to answer all of those. But just asking the question is so important, because it's going to put you and me on that path of trying to find those answers. And if we are able to find our values, right? So why are we doing what we do? And then our strength, how could we embody, could we materialize best those values? Then we can start to plan. And that's again the next step. So find out why you do things, your values, find out how you're going to do it, and then find out what you want to do. So plan your intent, your family, your if you want to save for a house, those things are going to really become really more realistic once you put a plan to it. And then there is one last step, and that's the hardest part, because I can do all of that work with my clients. We can do all the thinking about what's important for you and how you're going to do it and everything. But when I said at the beginning that it is your responsibility, that's where it comes important. The last piece of the puzzle is massive action. You cannot go forward in life if you don't do anything. And the beauty of it is that's under your control. You can take actions. You can decide to say, I'm going to do that today. I'm going to start to take the first step. If I want to start my business, or if I want to try to connect with another human being, I can call them, write them a message. I can write a business plan. I can call someone who has a similar business that maybe I can learn from. There is always something you can do. And for sure, nothing is going to change if you don't take actions. You don't need to take all of the actions right now. But one thing for sure, if you don't take any actions, nothing's going to happen. Even if you have thought about all of those beautiful things that we discussed about values and strength and so on and planning, no action, no result. And that's the same for pain management, for your emotional life, how you feel in your body. Knowing why, knowing how, knowing what, and then just do it. On that note, I hope that this is motivating you, and I hope that gives you a little bit more of a roadmap to backtrack, think and look at behind the scenes of your pain, and perhaps be a little bit more realigned and prevent all of those pains of coming to the surface. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you in 2 weeks for another episode of the Internal Compass podcast.